This is Rich from Arma Air Assault. This video is going to explain how we use Murkspawn in our custom missions. It's primarily aimed at the members of Arma Air Assault, but obviously if you're not in our group, first of all, you're missing out on a whole bunch of fun. Second of all, you're more than welcome to learn from this tutorial. It'd be great. The reason we need our members at Arma Air Assault to know how to do this is our primary form of spawning in bad guys. Personally, in my humble opinion, it's one of the better, easiest, most lightweight spawning scripts out there. And this is why we use it week after week after week. And we need to, because week after week after week we have custom mini missions in which we basically hone our battle skills and our skill sets to ensure that we're the best darn online gaming group out there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show everyone how to do use the Murkspawn respawn. This is assuming you already know a bunch of stuff about the editor, so if I hit anything you don't quite understand, you're going to have to look and learn it from another tutorial. So first thing we need to do, you can see that up here I've already saved a mission, and the reason I saved this mission is because I have to have the Murkspawn SQF in the mission file. If you look here, here is a screenshot of the Murkspawn inside my mission folder. You need to have this, otherwise obviously what I'm about to show you won't work. You won't be able to see it in action like I'm about to show you. So the first thing we need to do, you can see here I am at the ACC airfield on Altus. First thing we need to do is put one of us down, otherwise obviously you won't be able to put anything else down on the map. You can see that Rich is already set up to go because I actually done a couple of dry runs through this. Preparation is your best friend. And you can see I'm on the map. We're going to go ahead and put some bad guys on the map. This will act as two purposes. These bad guys will be standing in for the people who are going to be spawning in for us tonight. And second of all, it will show that in fact the bad guys, the custom bad guys we use do in fact shoot back. So you see we have Op4 and Yedanama, which are unique to Arma Air Assault for our bad guys. Put them on the map. Let's put them facing poor old Rich. And if we go into the map, you will see that as soon as I spawn in, these guys will not like me very much. And yeah, there we go. Short and sweet. So obviously these guys are here. I'm here. We're all happening at the same time. As you know, the challenge is the fact that we can't have too many bad guys on the map at any given time. We can't have too many moving, thinking objects on the map at any given time. AI, moving trucks, stuff like that. Otherwise, it's going to lag all of our members. And, you know, we try to make sure everyone has a good gaming experience from week to week. So what we need to do is we need to spawn these guys in as we need them. And you will see why Rich feels personally that this is probably one of the better, most underestimated, and probably the most underused spawn scripts for Arma 3. So the first thing we can do one of two things. You can do it in either order. You need to put the trigger down to say, hey, by the way, we need to spawn these guys, and then you need to put the code in the bad guys so they can be spawned. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the bad guys first. So let me go over and get the script for you. Now what I did is I went over and copied the script off of a notepad file that I have updated. If you use the example within the Murkspawn mod itself or the Murkspawn SQF, it's wrong. The guy who created this obviously is very clever, but he actually just copied and pasted the Murkspawn commands and code from Murkspawn that he used in Arma 2. And they don't work in Arma 3 because obviously it's a different SQF, and you'll see this in a minute. So now I have it copied. I go to my initialization and I hit Control V, which pastes it, and you can see it says null equals this once execVM Murkspawn 3 SQF. If you go off of the one that's within the SQF itself, it doesn't have the 3 in there. So it's not, it can't find the SQF that you're referring to in this unit. You only have to put it in the team leader, and if you see, that's exactly what I did right there. The team leader, because he's grouped with everyone else, will spawn everyone else as needed. So you will see we have this in here. So now we have to create the trigger. I'm not going to go into creating triggers. So if you can follow along from this example, that's great. If you need expertise on creating triggers, you need to go out and find one of the many videos on how to create a trigger. I'm basically going to create a small, very small, because I'm right on top of it, trigger. Going to go to my clipboard and copy what we need. So I'm going to put this in the on action. In other words, when this trigger is tripped, this is what's going to happen. You can see it says trigger 1 setVariable Murkspawn true. Okay? Not necessarily going to be able to explain what that is, but I can tell you it works every time. I'm going to copy trigger 1 because it's very important you put trigger 1 up in the name. You have to name this trigger 1 because this is what this code is telling this. It's looking for this trigger, right? So if I have more than one trigger, more than one Murkspawn, I'm going to have to name these triggers different names. Trigger 1, trigger 2, trigger 3, trigger 4, so on. You have to make sure this matches this, otherwise it's not going to work. So I put this down. Let's go ahead and shape this, put it close. As you guys know, I like to fly everywhere. I don't necessarily like to walk. So now I have this trigger down. This will not work if I leave it just like this. What I need to do is I need to synchronize this. When I first saw this step, Rich personally felt it was a pain in the butt. But I realized once I started using this, as have a couple of other mission makers, that this is actually really good because you can visually see which trigger is connected to which group that you're spawning. In the old days, it would sit just like this, and once you have about 20 of these on the map, you're never sure which trigger relates to which group. However, if we spawn these, if we synchronize these, then you'll be able to see exactly which one goes to which. So I drag the synchronize from the trigger to the team leader, and there it is. Now what will happen is as soon as the game starts, the Murkspawn script will put all these guys on a clipboard. We will not see them until we walk over this trigger. One important point about the trigger, make sure it's set up. Like you can see, if I walk over this, nothing will happen. So I'm going to say that blue 4 is going to activate it, which is what we are. Okay. So now if I hit preview, they will be there for half a second. I'm not going to lie to you, but they'll disappear really quickly. You can see they actually managed to get a couple of shots off before they were copied to the clipboard. Now if I walk forward, bang, there they are, all the bad guys. Now they see me, and I'm dead. Now let me tell you why Rich feels this is a brilliant script. A bunch of the other, and listen, all the other spawn scripts are much better than I could ever code, obviously, in a million years. But the beauty about these is, what I can do is, I can take these guys, basically do anything with them. I can give it a waypoint. I can give it a waypoint to walk over here, to walk over here, to walk over here. I could even, if I want to, we can change this to a get into nearest, right? Then we can put a truck here. Let's have them get into one of these, a Russian covered, shall we? I could even get him to a truck, right? Because get in nearest, and drive off. And the thing is, they won't do this until I hit this trigger. So what will happen is, as soon as I step across, and as a matter of fact, let's do this. Let's do it so they don't see me. Let's move this over here so they don't shoot me. So what happens, as soon as I walk across these guys will walk. Then let's move this a little bit closer so we don't have to waste video. They'll walk over here, they'll get in the truck, and they'll drive off here. All right? So let's go ahead and show this to you. And what's going to happen is I'm going to go prone as soon as I get into the game so they don't see me. Oh, look at that. We don't have to. We're on a hill. Let's go up and see what we can see. So now I've just about hit the trigger. Now here's the thing. Did you see that hesitation? That's the thing about any type of spawn script. There's always like a little game fart. So the guys should be... There they go. Can you see them over there? Let's look through the scope. See? They're all getting into the truck. And you guys know from the example I just showed, they weren't there before I stepped over the trigger. And then they'll drive away. There they go. And they'll go off to the next waypoint. Now, why is that brilliant? That is brilliant because these guys are not going to be taken from our resources as we're playing our game until we hit this trigger. So if we start off way over here, we fight our way, we could be fighting a bunch of bad guys, and these guys are not taking our resources until we actually get there. It's a very, very clever way of doing it. Now, let me give you an example of how you have to have different scripts. And I'll move this over here, and I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll move these guys facing away so it gives Rich a shooting chance. Right? So if I want to do a different set of bad guys, and I'm going to start fresh with showing you some shortcuts. Let's go ahead and, let's put our Greek militia on here, shall we? There's the Greek insurgency. There's the militia. There they are. They all look the same, but once you get into the map, they're a little bit different. Now the easiest way is you've already got this down. You can just copy paste this part right here. And I'm going to put this in this init line. Now I need to come up with a different trigger, right? So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make this trigger a little bit skinnier. So I have to do a lot of walking because I don't want these guys to see me. I can copy and paste this trigger. All right? Now, remember, I told you these two have to match. The game will not let you have two entities with the same name, so it named this 1-1. So let's name that 2. This has to match, otherwise it will not work, right? And what do I have to do? I have to synchronize it, otherwise the thing is not going to go off, right? Let's give these guys a waypoint. Because the Greek militia are a little bit poorer than the well-financed Yedanama, they can't afford a truck. So what we're going to do, and I'll tell you what we're doing. We're going to actually make these guys never fire. We'll make these guys never fire. So that way Rich stands a fighting chance. Now what should happen is as soon as I spawn, I'm going to walk across this trigger. These guys are going to spawn. And then by the time I get to this trigger, these guys are going to spawn. And they're going to walk over here. Alright, so let's see how this, let me go ahead and save this. And let's see what happens. There they go. You saw all the guys got copied to the clipboard. The truck is still there because that is not on a Murkspawn. That's just sitting there. Beauty about that is it uses less resources because the game only has to monitor its health. In other words, if it's being blown up or anything. So we're going to walk forward. Okay, there's a little bit of a lag there, so they all spawned at the same time. As a matter of fact, let's tell you what, let's do that again. And I'll stop this time when I get to the first thing. I'll just take a couple of steps, which that should be enough to set off my, there you go, my Yedanama. And they're going ahead, and you'll see the other guys did not spawn yet, and hopefully they're not going to shoot me. Then if I move forward, you will see the next trigger is going to go off, and we're going to have bang, the Greek militia are spawning. And this is how you're going to pace your bad guys around the map. And now obviously you can see we have what we have probably 32 bad guys here now. So this is pretty much all the bad guys we want to have. They're not going to go to the truck because they're all staring at me, but they can't fire. It's not very fun for them, but it's pretty good for us. The other things you can do with this, the reason it's flexible, is if you go in the trigger, you can do your timeout, which means that if I do 10 seconds, 10 seconds, 10 seconds, and I'm not an expert on this. Keen actually has done this better than Rich has. On this trigger, when I step over it, it's going to take 10 seconds for it to spawn. So that's how we do it. That's how we do a Murkspawn script. Very, very basics. You need to look into the Murkspawn file that tells you the different commands. You can basically spawn them just once. In other words, as soon as they hit the trigger, they will spawn. You can also do it to where they will spawn every 30 seconds after every AI member in the group dies. So in other words, you eliminate a 5-man squad, and that's all that's in the squad. 30 seconds later, they'll respawn. You can also do it to where, regardless if they're dead or not, it'll just spawn another wave. And then finally, it'll reset the trigger, so the trigger will exist again after so many seconds. Personally, Rich doesn't use that one. Be careful with the waves, because remember, we're trying to limit the number of characters we have on the screen at any, or in the map at any given time. And if you spawn 5 groups of 25 guys, now you have 100 guys running around the map, because you're not necessarily guaranteeing that you're killing them. The downside to using the one where they spawn when you've killed the whole group is there's some characters that take time to bleed out, and you may not necessarily be able to pace that battle as well as you could if you just did one spawn per trigger. So, well, good luck. If you have any questions, well, AAA guys anyway, Arma Air Assault guys, if you have any questions, send them to me in the forum.